Pharmaceutical company Prevacus says their new concussion medication Prevacol helps repair nerves and promote cell growth.
We can get the drug in the brain in less than 5 minutes. And our plan is, when we get that diagnosis on the field of play, give the drug nasally, get it in the brain quickly. When it gets in the brain, it actually gets into the nucleus of your brain cells, and it reduces swelling, inflammation, and oxidative stress at the same time.
When Jake and I first talked about this many years ago, one of my first questions was, will this help me? And he goes, no, this is for treatment immediately when a concussion or you think a concussion has occurred.
Yeah. The acute problems that exist later on in life, if we can take care of these at an early age and start getting some of these things to our children and grandchildren, and I think we can make this game, our game, football, a safer place.
And so the whole goal is we're trying to make the game safer. And so Odyssey and this drug, we believe, can be a game changer in so many different ways. Yes, on the football field, in the game of football, because that's where my passion lies, but also in the game of life.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Play Like a Girl. I'm your host, Gianna Cambria, as always, and I'm so excited to say that we have another amazing guest with us this week. But first, I just wanted to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day, and let's just get right into it. This week, we have a former D1 NCAA tennis player, a current Ironman triathlon participant, and the founder of MV Nutrition, Majo Velascani. So let's welcome her with her video. Hi, Mo. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited that you're on the podcast with me this week.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
No problem. So I wanted to kick things off and ask my first question, which is, how did you originally get into tennis?
So I played tennis my entire life since I'm like 6 years old because my mom played. So that was the sport of choice for family. And then I was the one that actually kept on playing for many, many years. So it was like a very common start in the sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I am aware that you competed at a national level. So how did you get into the top 4, and how long did that take you with your training?
So, of course, when I was 6, it was just like a recreational sport. And then as I grew up and I started to compete more like at a regional level, like my city and city rounds, in tennis, when you start winning, then you have regional championships and then you go into national championships. So when I was like 13, 14, I was already traveling to these like national championships. And then about 3 years old, I started going around South America. So we go to like Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, and those countries like close to Argentina. I'm from Argentina. And that was until I was like 16, 17. And then I started to play some professional tournaments. But then the time came where I had to decide whether I keep on playing the sport or I study or I work, because South America is a little bit different than here. So it's very hard to do like the work, study, and play sports, more like elite sports.
Yeah.
So at that point, they gave me a choice, and I was lucky enough just to find somebody that offered me a scholarship here to come and play.
Yeah, which is amazing, which was leading me into my second question, or my third question. When you were given this opportunity by your former coach, Ronnie Bernstein, how did you feel when he gave you that full ride to their Division I program?
So it was funny because when it happened, I was playing my last professional tournament, and after that, I had to just go into college, and that was. And then I remember I played the final of a tournament, and the person that beat me at that tournament gave me a card, and she said, "Just call," because I felt so bad at that time. It was like my last tournament of playing. So she was like, "Call the coach at this university. I know they offer scholarships." I contacted her, and right away she was like, "Well, just send me a video." Already knew English, and I was able to take the TOEFL and SAT right away with no issues. So between my grades and the videos I sent at that time, it was not the same technology, of course. It was just a video of myself playing, all these things. She was like, "Okay, I gave you a 4-year scholarship," and it was so simple that it didn't really feel real at that time.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, and I'm so glad that you had that opportunity.
Yeah.
But so how did the opportunity make you feel empowered as a woman in the sports industry?
Well, first, I wasn't used to playing with all the commodities that the United States offer. Like, if I play professional and at a very high level in my country, we didn't have everything that we were provided here. And at least at my school, tennis was only for females. So there was not a male's tennis team, to put it some way. So at a very young age, the opportunity to actually work, study, and play the sport. And I think that was, very useful in helping me like grow as a person too. I only played the sport. I saw sports where like that's it. That's the only thing that we can do. And then when I had to do everything at the same time, it was like a reality shock. But also as athletes, we train a lot, so we are used to being like exhausted type of thing and multitasking and doing all these things. So
So were you nervous at all when you began playing for this new team that you've never been a part of?
oh yeah, of course. Plus, I was very good, writing in English, but I couldn't understand because I didn't. So every time they were like explaining stuff, they had to do it like twice because I just couldn't get it. I was lucky because I came with another friend, so she also got the scholarship with me, and we had played together for a very long time. So that was like easier to put it some way, but it quite sometimes to get adjusted. At the beginning it was hard because I was living with my parents before, so now I was living by myself. I didn't understand, and then I was working, but after like a year, it was okay.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing though, also because my mom also, she spoke fluent Italian, and when she started school in New York, it took her a very long time to get used to things, but it just takes practice, and the fact that you even had a teammate beside you that was helping you the entire time is just amazing.
Yeah, it was a good opportunity. And then by living here, it's so much easier than if you actually try to learn it in your country.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So after college, you began coaching. What would you say is the main difference between being a consumer of tennis and being a coach?
It's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like everybody can play, not everybody can teach.
Yeah.
Way because then they're usually like tennis is a very emotional sport, so dealing with emotions of people and the problems that happen outside of the court that usually affect performance a lot, like in every sport, then you become more like a family to them, not only a coach. And then also dealing with the families if you're coaching kids, it's always a triangle and everybody has to be on the same page. And then many kids that play like high performance sports, they put like all their dreams on this. So if you're actually not giving your 100%, then you're affecting what they are looking for in the long term, and you can really make an impact in their lives. So things like as a player, you're more like focus on yourself only, and that's it, and you don't really care about nothing around you. But when everything that you do is important, so have to be careful.
Yeah, I agree. I do some coaching on the side, and I can definitely say the same thing. As an individual, all I did was care. Well, I didn't care about myself. I also cared about my teammates, but I was more worried about what I was doing. And then as a coach, I was like figuring out everything with every single one of my students, and I was putting all of them first. And it was just so different than being a consumer of the sport.
Correct.
So which one would you say that you prefer, being a consumer or being a coach?
I like to play the sport.
Yes, I agree.
20 years. Yeah.
So, in life, people usually say that they learn from their coaches, but I'm curious as to what you've learned from one of your students during the time as an assistant coach.
Oh, you learn a lot from your students.
Mm-hmm.
Actually helped me a lot transitioning in my career because I still work coaching people somehow. So, all those skills I learned, like coaching, I transfer them into what I do today. So it helped me a lot be more empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like own what you teach them. So, you can actually feel what they feel. Because if you need to be connected to the person that you're coaching, you can't just be teaching the skill and that's it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Having empathy, with anything in your life is so important, not even coaching. And that's an important characteristic to carry as well. So what what made you get into biking and running after tennis?
So when I was like 23, 24, I was playing soccer and I broke my wrist. So I have a bruise in my right hand. So I
Mm-hmm.
off a couple of months from playing tennis. And I was already transitioning to an adult life type of thing. So it was
Yeah.
like working and doing my master. I didn't have much time. And sadly, to play tennis, you're required to have two people at least. So I started running because I couldn't play. And then I ran for a while and kind of like got bored because running is like one simple, it's not simple, but it's like, one sport, and tennis is a little bit more like technical and they are more variable. So, after some time, one day I started swimming and I realized I couldn't swim at all. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even swim one lap at the pool. And that kind of like triggered a challenge, like I'm not able to do a sport.
Yeah.
Same happened with cycling. I have never really cycled. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, because I cannot do it, I'm just gonna try to do it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't challenge an athlete. So then, the sports of triathlon requires a lot of consistency. Like nobody's really bad at it if you train. You just train and be consistent. And I got better and I started new people, and it's a little more like, doable with like an adult life and a family. And then if your family does it too, it kind of like works well.
Mm-hmm.
And then tennis is a lot of like feelings. So if you don't play consistently and you lose the feeling, then it doesn't feel very good. And in my mind, I could still play, but in reality, I was losing the skills, so I couldn't really handle that situation.
Yeah.
So I decided to just do something else that didn't require much feelings, just consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like work, and at the beginning, I was kind of lost like everybody. I felt like I can never really play sports, but I always had that discipline and consistency that tennis taught me. So it wasn't that hard to actually get sports.
Mm-hmm. Well, so all of this training led you into the Ironman triathlon, which is also an insane accomplishment. How did you physically prepare your body for this? Because I know I've watched people train for it before and their bodies were shutting down. So I'm just curious as to how you did that.
So I started with I started with like the very short distance, but because of the type of athlete that I am, I was never like the very fast or strong athlete. So as soon as I started training for longer distances, I felt a little bit more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Half distances, and when I got like a hand of it, I was like, well, I want to do the long distance. And then I trained. So I initially I was gonna do Ironman Texas when pandemic started. So I had trained for like 5 months, and then they canceled it because of pandemic. So
Mm-hmm.
we did a lot of like long distance events, but we not like a goal because everything was canceled. And they
Mm-hmm.
announced that they were gonna do another Ironman at the end of the year. That was actually the only one that happened in the United States during pandemic. So I trained for that one, and I actually was able to compete. I was very lucky. Like nobody competed that last year, 2020,
Mm-hmm.
my first one. And in terms of training, so there are like some disciplines that I had never trained for that distance, and it was a lot of learning. So like swimming, I swam a lot. I probably swam more than my entire life in a year,
Wow.
just to get the endurance, because swimming is a very technical sport. So if you haven't learned the skill, it's a little bit hard get very strong. It requires a lot of practice, a lot of technique. And for me at that point, I just wanted to get through.
Mm-hmm.
I just swam so much that I got the endurance until the point I knew I was going to make it out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Cycling was the same situation. I had a group at the time, so we would like cycle very long distances, like 100 and 200 miles. We did like very, very long trainings.
Wow.
Endurance. And then running, I had always run somehow. I had done marathons before. So like this part is usually the marathon, or what people start to like have problems in the Ironman. And I had some experience, so I was a little more confident doing that. And then I was training like 20 hours per week, basically, with like a lower weeks or higher weeks, but that's basically, it's like a part-time job that you don't pay for type of thing. But I enjoy it a lot, you know, like I enjoy it, and I never skip a training, and I knew that whatever you give training, that's like the real race.
Yeah.
Time is just like the show time.
Mm-hmm.
But
So what would you say was the most like the hardest part of the Ironman triathlon? Was it the swimming, the cycling, or the running? Which one?
so it was, surprisingly, it was actually the run for me.
Okay.
Yes, and I saw I was more prepared than I was, and I wasn't. And maybe it wasn't the run, maybe it was the nutrition that didn't work as well as I thought it was going to work, because it's always trial and error. I didn't make peace after that run. I was very upset.
Mm-hmm.
Thought that's where I was going to be the strongest, and it didn't happen. And you train for a very long time, and then you get this one opportunity, and if anything fails, say 6 months of training. So it was very emotional. Because when I was on my 17, I broke down. I decompensated, and after that, it was a matter of like pushing through without even whatever I had. That's what I used, and if I had nothing, that's what I used to. But after that, I was able to like sit down, you know, and went through and see what was wrong, and train differently. And now, what we are gonna do Ironman Texas again. They cancel it again, so we train 5 more months and they cancel it, and we are going to Ironman Cozumel at the end of the year in Mexico. So
Okay. Well, best of luck with that. That seems exciting.
yeah, the trip should be exciting too. So we always try to do, you know, like a trip, family trip, and we combine the race in there. My husband does it too, so it's actually a little easy. Yeah, it's too many hours, and if everyone in the family is not on the same page, it can disrupt families, to be honest.
Yeah, but that's a good support system for the both of you to be doing it.
Yeah, definitely. It becomes a lifestyle type of thing.
Okay. So what qualities would you say make up a strong woman, like an empowering woman like you who completed the entire Ironman?
You know, it takes a lot of discipline and consistency, and making sure you do everything that you had to do prior to the race.
Mm-hmm.
Being consistent with your training gives you the confidence to get through the actual race, and then being able to separate a little bit the emotion, what you're feeling. It is very important, because there is a point where your head is going to tell you to quit, and then if you're able to just shut that down and keep going, that makes a huge difference. And also, you're going to see a lot of quitting and walking and feeling bad, so it can get a little bit intimidated. So if you stay focused, and I always say, like, no matter what, one feet in front of the other, just keep moving forward until the end. And that's a lot of like the Ironman long distance philosophy, you know, like just keep moving forward no matter what.
Yeah. So how would you say that you embody those qualities within your day-to-day life that you just explained?
Well, I work a lot, like a lot. I have 3 jobs, and I have my company, and I go to school, and I have family. So actually, training a lot is the fun part of the situation. You know, it's the one I used to release stress. It's the one I use the time to share with my family, with my friends. So it's hard because the training sessions are hard, and most of the time you're like tired and out of breath, or you cramp on all these things. But it's a different type of like fun, to put it some way. Some people might not understand, but for us, it's a enjoy that feeling.
Yeah.
And then it's a lot of like doing nutrition right, sleeping when you had to sleep, make sure you recover properly, because we do a lot of like double sessions. So we run in the morning, and then we swim in the afternoon. And because we all have like normal lives, and we are like recreational athletes, and how we have to like fit it in between jobs, school, family. So
Yeah.
you find
Well,
the way.
You find a way. So I know when you were initially telling me all about you, you told me that you got your master's. Was it your master's in nutrition and dietetics?
Yes.
So how do you bring that into your training?
So since I'm a kid, I always been working with dietitians, because it's like another disciplines of any sport. Like if you don't do nutrition properly, recover properly, then most likely training itself won't make you a good athlete. So when I went for nutrition was because of my history working with dietitians in sports nutrition, but I never thought I was going to actually end up doing a lot of sports nutrition. So I started with clinical nutrition, and I have a very strong background there. And like 3 years ago, I decided to go on the side into sports, just because I always loved it and I experienced it, and I know there's a lot of misinformation, and I could help a lot of people. And I would say like 60-70% of my clients are females.
Okay.
So a lot of them come to me with a lot of like problems with nutrition or misconceptions, and I try to help them. And now there is a lot of research on female nutrition for athletes, quite different from males. So I had put a lot of emphasis on, teaching other females how to eat and how to eat around the cycles, and understanding that we are not males and we cannot do things the same way. And that has been very important. And I think it makes an impact and a difference in female athletes. There are also like eating disorders. So everything I have learned, through the years, I try to apply day to day to help other females, because, the stronger the female community is, the more competition, the higher the level. So at the end, we all win.
Yeah. I definitely agree with all of that. There are similarities and differences between men and female, which are very important in discussion, because a lot of people are nervous to even touch upon that concept or the idea of it. And it's important for females to share with one another and to encourage one another.
Definitely.
Yeah. So how do you encourage the other females around you to push themselves and to pursue something challenging like this event, or even to step outside of their comfort zones?
So, I think I actually don't really think much about when I'm about to go into a challenge. Not being able to is never like a thing. You might fail because you have the skill, you have learned it, but like not trying is not an option. So whoever asks me, I always tell them, at least try. That we can always go back to where we started. So like, just living, asking yourself if you could, shouldn't be an option. And the same way happens with nutrition. I tell them they just stay consistency. I teach them you are not valued by the way you look, but we are doing this so you gain performance, so you feel there, so you create new lifestyle changes. With females, I work a lot trying to, stay away from insecurities, and just like helping them take the first steps so they can build confidence and keep going.
Yeah. So I was a female athlete myself, and I know you were for many years. And I feel that insecurities are one of the worst things that just drag us down, and that mentally just like punch us in the face and drain us. So what would you have to say to another female athlete who is struggling with in these thoughts that have been in their head for this long?
I always tell people that focus on what we have, because if we keep focusing on what passed, or what happened to us, that's not coming back. So it's like crying over spilled milk.
Yeah.
So like set goals and create a system that works, and create routines so you don't have to think much about it, and just do things that add positive things to your life, like every day something positive. Like whatever is negative, kick it out. Like you don't need it there. So surround yourself with people that also are positive. Create a positive environment, basically, and then just keep and trust the process, because changes don't happen from one day to another. Improvement doesn't happen to one day to another. Like sometimes we don't know because it looks like it's very far away, but if you keep going, at the end, it takes shorter than you think.
Yeah. And I think leaving the past in the past is so important, and just living in the present is one of the best gifts that you can possibly have as a human, because time goes by so fast and you don't want to live grieving, or you don't want to live mentally abusing yourself. Just live every day as it is, because you never know when you're never going to wake up, or you never know when it's going to end. So every day is a gift, honestly.
Correct. Yes, it is.
So can you tell us a little bit about NV Nutrition?
So NV Nutrition started as an idea of being a private company to do counseling, nutrition counseling, but I didn't really know what population I was going to treat. So I started treating everybody. I'm lucky enough that I have developed skills in every area of nutrition. I have worked, pediatrics, neonatology, pregnancy, acute, medical, outpatient, genetics, ketogenic diet, like everything, sports. So I wasn't really scared of taking anybody. And I also had a mentor that kind of like showed me how private practice worked. So that helped a lot. And little by little, I started to get more and more athletes because of my athletic, background experience, and because I'm in the community of athletes. And then a lot of them were females. So now my focus goes more on sports nutrition, but I do take a lot of like pregnant women and pediatric patients and pediatric athletes, so like young athletes, just because that's what I do. So my main job at the hospital is pediatric nutrition, and I have a lot of experience there. So I was able to combine. So my two areas of focus are sports nutrition on one side, and then pediatric nutrition on the other one.
Good for you. That's amazing. You are making such a difference in so many lives. That's the best thing.
The most rewarding is like going to races to actually watch, because I was never that person being on the sideline. I was always the person competing. So in the past year, I started to go into races where I could see my clients competing, and it feels very rewarding.
Yeah.
I also saw them failing because of not doing nutrition right, and cramping and running, on an empty tank. But I also saw them overcoming that and going to another race and doing it right. And it's very fulfilling, because I know how important it is to them. So it becomes important to me as well.
Mm-hmm. And I bet it just makes you feel amazing as a person.
Yeah.
Just watch that.
Yeah, you know how emotional finish lines could be. So
yeah. So I know we were gonna keep this short, so this is my last question. Obviously, my podcast is called Play Like a Girl. I was just wondering what you think it means to play like a girl, and why it's important that younger generations understand the concept behind it.
I think females need to gain a lot of leadership, and they need to be able to take the first step and be confident and know that we are not limited, and we shouldn't compare ourselves to males.
Yeah.
We just need to compare ourselves to ourselves and try to be better every day. So my best advice to anybody that's starting anything new.
Well, that was a great answer, and thank you so much for being on Play Like a Girl.
No, thank you.
I loved speaking with you, and I hope you have a great night.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, guys, well, that was Maho. It was an honor speaking to her. I absolutely loved having her as my guest, and this is the podcast called Play Like a Girl for the girls. As always, I'm your host, Gianna, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Pharmaceutical company Prevacus says their new concussion medication Prevacol helps repair nerves and promote cell growth.
We can get the drug in the brain in less than 5 minutes. And our plan is, when we get that diagnosis on the field of play, give the drug nasally, get it in the brain quickly. When it gets in the brain, it actually gets into the nucleus of your brain cells, and it reduces swelling, inflammation, and oxidative stress at the same time.
When Jake and I first talked about this many years ago, one of my first questions was, will this help me? And he goes, no, this is for treatment immediately when a concussion, or you think a concussion has occurred.
Yeah.
The acute problems that exist later on in life, if we can take care of these at an early age and start getting some of these things to our children and grandchildren, and I think we can make this game, our game, football, a safer place.
And so the whole goal is we're trying to make the game safer. And so Odyssey and this drug, we believe, can be a game changer in so many different ways. Yes, on the football field, in the game of football, because that's where my passion lies, but also in the game of life.